trying to learn how to cook and keep this place halfway straight.
Right. Well, it's a beautiful. How long have you lived?
We built it out in '63. I was
Right.
telling Kyle, and this was the first house on Glade Street. And the post mailbox was the city limit. And
Oh, my
all
goodness.
that was pasture out there, and I was a rancher by trade. And
he thought he was going to be in the country.
I moved here when I leased a pretty good sized ranch in Center, Texas.
Yeah.
And then I ran three ranches in Huntsville and 2 in Louisiana for some Houston people.
Yeah.
And I had several places back around Buda. That's where I came.
Yeah.
Outside Austin. And so this got me in the middle of them. I'd go one direction one week and one the other. And hell, I thought I was in the country. You know, there wasn't nobody out here. And I bought that lot next door, and I bought 33 feet over here. And my daughter's 7 miles out that way in Pebble Creek, and it's still growing.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Yeah, that was really country. Where Pebble Creek is now, that was.
We kind of had the money to buy a lot of this place. But that's hindsight, and I made lots of mistakes.
Well, we want to visit with you about that and more. Kyle, you want to hook that onto him?
I do.
He just wants to hook something onto your shirt just so we don't have to take notes or anything, and we can just visit with you.
And I'm going to take this. And
I can ramble a lot. I don't.
Well, that's okay. I like rambling.
Rambling is good. You can ramble for like, I guess, 6 hours.
Yeah.
All right.
We have plenty of.
Do it. I got to go to a chiropractor at 2:00.
Well, we're not going to be here that long, but.
And the little old building where you want me to go Thursday is it Hiram Moore's place?
That's it. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Hiram.
Yeah.
You know anything about them?
I know of them just because I'm in the building and I've read the story about him.
There's 4 brothers.
Yeah.
The oldest one was Warren, and Hiram, and then Debbie, and then Homer Moore was the youngest one.
Right.
And all those brothers are. Homer Moore was my room early when I was a senior.
Right.
And that's how I met the family. And I was an animal science student, and he was a freshman in my outfit, and he was animal science, and so we got to be pretty good friends. And I'd go home and ride horseback and around Alvin. And so I eventually met all of those sort of brothers. I went to all their funerals.
Yeah.
Warren's got a son here named Warren Neal.
Uh-huh.
You probably know everybody in town.
I've only been here for 23 years, so I know a lot of them, but I don't know.
I travel all the time in ranches, and then in '65, O.D. Butler. I've had a great life, but strange. Everything goes in circles and coincidences.
Right.
I was in the Army Hospital in Modesto, California with O.D. and O.D. Butler was in my ward.
Really?
He picked up a booby-trapped rifle and it blew up and broke his leg or something. And that's how I met him, and he was head of animal science here. So in '65, they wanted somebody with ranching experience. And I didn't have anything but a BS degree. And they came over to my house here and asked me if I'd apply for a job as a beef specialist. And I thought about it a while. I had 2 kids getting ready to go to college, and I just bought thousands of dollars worth of cattle and equipment on the ranch over at Center and one over in Lake Austin.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it was in debt. I said, hell yeah, I better get some grocery money and go to work with A&M. So I kept ranching and worked for them too.
Right.
And I traveled everywhere. I put on week-long beef cattle short courses for 10 years for them. And I'd go from one town to another. And I've been just about every place and knew lots of people, but away from here and not here.
Right.
I knew Marion Pugh real well and Ed Davis, and those were my close friends. But now all my friends are dead, just about. Haven't got hardly anybody left that of any consequence that were close to me.
Well, you were in
It's getting lonesome.
you were A&M class of 43, right?
Yes, sir.
That was kind of a famous class, and that just about all of them went off at the same
Yeah.
time, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking this when you told me you was coming. We've had somebody in every war since the Civil War,
Mm-hmm.
Spanish Americans, and the border wars with Mexico, and World War One and World War Two, and
Right.
everyone but Korea. We skipped Korea,
Yeah.
and I'd have probably gotten that one if I hadn't gotten a medical discharge.
Right.
And I'm proud of that. I got 3 grandsons in the Air Force right now. One flies a B-52 and one a F-16 fighter, and one just starting pilot training.
Is that right? And they're all in the Air Force.
Sir?
They're all in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Which is where you wanted to be.
One's been, yeah, I did.
You wanted to be in the Army Air Corps, right?
How'd you know all that?
Well, I did some
You
homework.
must have read that. If you read that stuff that Yunkit had in the paper,
I got that.
that girl screwed it up so
Oh,
bad.
good. Well, you can help us clean it up then.
Yeah, I don't have the first one, see?
Yeah.
There you go.
And she did it the first 1 or 2, and it was bad. Hello. Beg your pardon? But I'll help
Clean it
you
up.
with
You,
that thing.
you were in New Guinea though, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
God,
that
yeah,
part is
That
right.
was my home. That damn Yunkit keeps getting me into stuff. And he was a hero, hell, in the 101st Airborne, not me. And I'll tell you my story if you got the patience.
Yes, sir. That's why we're here.
I was class 43, of course. I was in the, I was captain over my battery when I was a senior here, which I was proud of, and was in the Ross Volunteers and all that stuff. And then the war hit. I was horseback riding over in Trinity River Bottoms with another Aggie, and we come out that Sunday and we was at war, and rushed back home here as my junior year.
Mm-hmm.
And we all thought we'd go the next day, but what they did then, I became a senior in May of 42, and then we went to school through the summer, and then that following fall, and that made up our senior year, so we could get out a few months earlier instead of in May of 43. We all gathered around here, and they sent our whole class off to whatever branch you're in. I was in the anti-aircraft automatic weapons, and I went to Camp Davis, North Carolina, and 13 weeks there in Officers Candidate School. And we had to do that because we weren't able to go to a summer camp, which would have been the normal thing in the summer because we went to school here. They sped us up. And we all said goodbye and got on our respective trains and places. Went to Alexander, Louisiana, to that base there, and got our hair cut off and our couple of ugly wool uniforms, and they made us corporals. We went to Camp Davis, North Carolina for my training.
Mm-hmm.
Got out of there, and I put in to go to the west somewhere, southwest, west, or overseas west. You had a choice, so they sent me down the coast 100 miles to Camp Stewart, Georgia.
Right.
That's not too far west.
No.
And I had lived there in the 7th grade, so I knew the area well. And I got commissioned May the 6th, married May the 8th. A wonderful lady, and I had a great life, 59 years with. And I went down there, and as soon as I got down there, why, I just loved airplanes, and I wanted to fly so bad I couldn't stand it. So I went over to the local base there and took a physical and passed it easy. Another officer and I did. And went to my battalion commander and told him I'd taken it, would like to be transferred to Air Corps, and he said, it's too late. He said, we're frozen. And all I just got in there, and I was a 20-year-old lieutenant there with damn 60, 80 men under me,
Uh-huh.
And I grew up fast, and he said, we're going overseas, so we were frozen. Nobody could do anything. So I stayed with it and went to a lot of combat there. I had a terrible race ride I was in, and somehow or another they picked me to be the MP officer with no training or experience in that field at all for the city of Savannah during the race ride. I had a staff of one staff sergeant and one PFC and a Jeep and an old 45 pistol. I lived that 3 days, and that was the longest 3 days of my life, but I didn't know what I was doing, and
Man.
I had to go down in the middle of all of that riding and stuff, and lots of killing. And that seasoned me. And we got to train August 7th, 43, and headed for God knows where, and it ended up being Camp Stoneman, California, which was up the Sacramento River.
Mm-hmm.
And up there is a staging area where you get your rifle and so forth, issued and everything to go overseas. And I had a friend over at pre-flight school. He was going to be a Marine pilot, class 42, and he called me and said, come over here and visit with me. Said, I'll get you a date. And I said, oh, I don't want a date. I just got married. And so there was 5 Aggies in my battalion. I had no idea when we'd leave there. I went over there to see what we did in Monterey, California, and when we got back, there was our whole outfit standing outside the barracks there in the fatigues. I'll show you a picture. Getting ready to march down to the riverboat. You get on the riverboat and it goes down to Sacramento, and then they get off there and get on the big one to go overseas. Out of my heart was in my mouth, and a friend there from New Jersey had packed all our stuff for us, so that saved our butt. Incidentally, when I got over to Monterey, my good friend had a date for me.
Oh, really?
Waiting at the bus. And I walked through that, and when I went over to see, he goes home to my house and spends a few days. He knew my folks well, and told my wife all about it. Oh, she burnt it. I got the hottest letter from her, and I think I was in Australia then. Oh, it like burned up the mail, I tell you. He thought that was so funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got on the ship, and
now what
sir?
What date are we now? Are we in
We're August 7th, 43.
August 7th of 43?
Yes, sir. I had walked through. You take a big line, walk around, and the officer gave me my carbine rifle, and he was in the same damn outfit I was here in the ordnance then. But he had been to Coast Guard too. Yeah. He just grinned at me, that son of a gun, he said, like, I'm gonna get to stay here and you gotta go. And he handed me that rifle, and we left. You can't put a lot of this on the show, I'm sure. I had put two quarts of rum, which is all students drank rum and Coca-Cola in my valve pack, and when they loaded on that damn Dutch freighter we got on, it broke both of them in there, and everything I owned was soaked in rum for the whole duration. Well, we get on that ship and start leaving the next morning out under the Golden Gate Bridge, and had a blimp that went over you so you'd see submarines and escort us out, and then there was a destroyer waiting out there for us and another troop ship, and it was real rough. Out there, there's cross deals. Everybody got sick, even the sailors. And I was one of the last ones to get sick. Some of them got sick and stayed sick the whole trip. But we didn't know where we were going. But it was a 28-day trip. And we had to go, reason is that long is because we had to go way down below the Christmas Islands and across down the southern Pacific to keep from getting torpedoed.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the ships go this way and then this way, the
Yeah.
whole damn way.
Zigzag all
And
the
it
way.
took about 28 days on that scout. No fresh water. I had to bathe in salt water. 2 meals a day. One of them was always a bologna sandwich and an orange. And it was so long on that thing. And we pulled into Brisbane, Australia sometime, I guess September 1st and somewhere around there. And we bivouacked there in a horse race track, nice place. And got off that ship and got on there on good land. We was happy to see that. And stayed there a few days, enjoyed their good beer.
Mm-hmm.
They had their beer was only a quart bottle. That was the smallest, and it was 14%. And it was delicious. They still make a 3X beer or 4X or something, and it would kill you. And we got on a little narrow gauge train, and we headed up north. Always, of course, you never knew where you were going. Went through Errol Flynn's old home and ended up in Townsville, Australia. And we bivouacked out there in the sticks for 2-3 months and spent most of our time marching. It wasn't a bad time. I was on a good officer baseball team. We whipped everybody, and I had a boxing team,
Uh-huh.
and we mopped up a lot. And I got hit in the left arm right here in the elbow. Looked like a horse's hock by a curved ball, and I was inside, and they took me to the hospital, put big needles in there to drain it, and I was laying there in the hospital, you know, like I was wounded. And they had the hospital was a neighborhood like this one, and each house was a ward. They'd taken over the houses, and so we were out in the front porch of this officer's place, and here comes somebody down the street. Big old tall man and 2-3 good-looking women with him, and so we recognized it as John Wayne.
Oh, really?
I'll be darned.
He had that old big hat on. He wears these shoes, you know, and he wasn't going to come to our ward because we were officers. He just wanted to help the enlisted men. And we started moaning and groaning up there on the porch, and he started laughing, and he came up there, and we had the best time with him. And he put that big old hat on me when he found out I was from Texas. And
Well, was he in the service then? Or
no,
was
he just putting on one of these
Yeah.
shows they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the only thing I ever saw, and I had a
Did he ask you about your injury?
I don't.
Did you tell him it was a war wound or an inside fastball?
Yeah, I wiped out a battalion of Jeff. No,
Like here in the elbow.
You don't get a Purple Heart for an inside fastball, though,
no,
do you?
you sure don't. I got a broken nose in the boxes. I didn't get one there. In fact, I was my deal was so strange and remote, I didn't even get a good conduct ribbon. My friends can understand why. But one day they called us and said, took the whole battalion in. I was in a individual battalion, not attached to a division or anything. And they said, y'all got to load this ship, this Liberty ship, with 500-pound bombs. It was a Townsville port, and so the men started working and loading that damn thing and loading it up with bombs, and that's what they primarily used in those days. And the main air base, 5th Air Force headquarters, was up in Port Moresby, New Guinea, and so after they loaded that ship, it was almost about to sink. They said, "Now, the battalions load up your stuff. You're getting on, sit on top of them, and go to New Guinea."
500 pounds of bombs.
Yeah.
So now, what city in Australia were you in?
Townsville.
Townsville. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can see it up. It's Townsville and Cairns, the two big cities of any consequence. They call it Cons,
Mm-hmm.
and that's way up. It's almost is where it leaves the West Texas looking country and starts being tropical again up there. And it got about wild up there as New Guinea was almost. And so we got on this ship and went up to Cairns, picked up some Marines. Remember, it's nighttime, always nighttime. And I remember two of them jumped off the back end because they didn't want to go back up to New Guinea. It was such a hell of a place. And of course, the screw on the ship pulled them down and grounded them.
Mm-hmm.
Then a day or two out, we got in a typhoon, and there wasn't room for us to sleep indoors or anything. And I had a cot on the deck in the storm. I remember, and they gave me a wool blanket. And I was laying out there, and that old cot would go bam, and it'd hit the railing, and then it'd slide back, boom, and it'd hit the bulkhead, and then back down again. Finally, it whipped my blanket off of me and blew it overside, and it was so rough, and I was soaking wet. So I went in there soaking wet and got in bed with an old Aggie from Spring, Texas, named Earl Winchy, and he didn't like it much because it was about that wide. But we got a little sleep, and then we finally got to New Guinea, Milne Bay, M-I-L-N-E, Milne Bay or something, in Papua, New Guinea. And that was the southernmost place the Japs had attacked. And the Australians infantry ran them back out of there, thank goodness. And so we landed there and set up around Milne Bay, our anti-aircraft guns, 40 millimeters and quad 450s caliber deals we had. And we stayed around there a while, and it was interesting. The mountain started right, Owen Stanley Mountains range started right there at the water almost. And the road to there, they had all this, probably can't be said anymore, all these damn do-gooders we got, but the road to our place was paved where they dug with a dozer, you know, and then pushed all these dead Japs in there, covered it over, and then made a road over it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a war then, son. It wasn't like now, and nobody interfered. We set up around there, and then some smart reason, just like making me an MP, they decided I was another Otter Murphy, and they'd give me a dozen or so men and send me up into these damn mountains.
Mm-hmm.
It'd take 2 days to go up and a day to come down. And we were supposed to be looking for stray Japanese that had come down at night sometime and try to steal food and stuff. And I did that 2 or 3 times. On the last time, I think I fell up there pretty good, hard fell, and tore my left knee up pretty good. Well, I didn't, I went on with it, and I still want to, I forgot to say this, but in Townsville, I still want to get in the Air Force.
Right.
So I went over to a base there and took a physical and passed it, and they said, "I'm sorry, you're too late. We don't take any more officers and grade back home. We've got enough pilots."
Mm.
And I went overseas early too. I mean, before my class, most of them stayed around the country here till 44 and went to various schools and training and stuff, but they wanted to get rid of me, and so I didn't get in the Air Force and went up there in those A-20s and B-25s, come down over those palm trees over my head, and I just get so chilled I wanted to be in one.
Oh, yeah.
I'd probably gotten killed, but anyway.
Oh, man.
I sat down there, and it was 5th Air Force had air superiority. They had whipped the Japs down pretty bad. It was Battle of Coral Sea and all was right in there. And so we didn't have much to do. And I guess the most exciting thing I did there, besides going up and hunting for the Japs, which thank God I never found, I was at a gun position one day, inspecting it, and I heard some GIs hollering. And I looked over there, and there was a GI swimming out in the bay, and he was headed straight out to see. I ran down there and asked him what the score was, and he said that he was out of his head and trying to swim home. Well, that was 7,000 miles to home. And I commandeered a little old boat with a little motor on it. I told him, I said, jump in here with me, and we went out there and pulled him out of the water. He was just turning blue and had a big chew tobacco in his mouth. And we saved him and took him to the hospital.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to see, I was still trying to be a hero, and I got a chance. 3 of us transferred to an outfit up in northern New Guinea, above Finchhaven. It was right across from New Britain. And it was a 155 millimeter outfit, big guns, long toms. That's why I can't hear good, I guess. And I was a gun officer. And our purpose was twofold. One was to set up on the beach there in case the Japs came over across from New Britain and tried to land. And they'd already been over there once, got repulsed. And then, or we could turn the guns around and fire up the coast of New Guinea to where there was thousands of Japs isolated off their cutoff. And you just turn around and drop them in there, and just the heck of it, what we were accomplished by it. And it's anyway, I ran into a lot of Aggie friends of mine there, and
right.
As they come through Finchhaven and Lay and those places, and my knee kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and got big and hot, sweaty, swelling all up, and I got dengue fever. And I lost about 30 pounds, and I finally went in there and I told him, Battalion Commander, I said, look at my knee. I said, it's sure killing me. It's got fever in it all now. It's just wet and hanging big old water on the knee thing. And I said, I want to go sit in the hospital, see if they can do anything for it. And so this was after about damn near 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I said, round on it. He said, well, I went and they didn't do anything like that over there in that climate. So they just put me in there and kept me, and I was kind of delirious from the fever.
Yeah.
And
well, the pain must have been.
Yeah.
I mean, your knee hurt for 2 years, right?
And they put me on a hospital shift called a sea snipe. And I swear to goodness, Tom, I don't have any inkling. I cannot ever remember getting on that thing. Come on.
Really?
But I ended up, about sobered up about the middle of the Pacific. And this would have been in late April, right after Okinawa.
Uh-huh.
And,
A 44.
Sir?
A 40.
45.
A 45, yeah, right before the bomb was dropped.
Yeah. And we got on that thing, headed home, and got home May the 8th, my wedding anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
From 43.
Right.
And that was also VE Day in Germany.
Right.
Brothers. And we pulled in at night, of course, always, in Los Angeles Harbor, and docked, and everybody was looking at the lights of Los Angeles. It was, you couldn't get off, and it was just, some of those guys had been over 4 years. And it wasn't like it is now. They fly you over 11 months or whatever it is. You went to stay and not to play.
Right.
And food was horrible over there. The Navy got all the transportation. I had one piece of fresh meat, I think, in about a year and a half. That was on a landing craft. They had steaks on there. They gave me one. And so we all lost weight. Well, all of a sudden the lights came on on the pier, and there was a huge old-time dance band like Tommy Dorsey or something right there by the ship, and the lights on it, and Dinah Shore was there. And she started singing to us, you know. We cried like babies, and we were so glad to get home. And next day, though, they put us on buses, took us into Birmingham General Hospital down right near Hollywood, and fed us our first meal back, a big mound of fried chicken, lettuce and tomatoes and milk, and those were things that we had never seen, you know.
Right.
Nothing was fresh over. It was all, they were just learning to make dehydrated food, and we got them dehydrated cabbage. It was awful. And spam, of course. And so that was just a real treat to get that. And well, I wasn't feeling real good, but I didn't know what was the matter with me. We took a drug called Ativan every day I was gone to keep from getting this malaria. And it turns you yellow, just as jaundice as your shirt there. So nothing showed. But I got there to that hospital, and I made it around all right. Then they put us on a train and sent me up to Modesto, California, Hammond General. And that's when I went in the ward there. And O.D. Butler was the only one sitting in there. Which is a story I want to tell you.
Yeah.
Amazing to me. And I was getting sicker and sicker. Well, I had been corresponding with a friend of mine who was a fullback here at A&M. He's got his pictures up there, Buck Wires and me. Named Jake Webster. And Jake wrote me a email or V-mail, whatever the hell they called him, and said, I'm coming home, I've been wounded. He said he was in Patton's Third Army. He was a commander, platoon commander in an armored outfit, and their life expectancy was about 2 weeks. And I wrote him back real quick, and I said, I'm coming home too. I said, wouldn't it be good if we both got put in the same hospital? Well, I never gave it another thought. I walked into the ward and I said, O.D., have any idea where my bunk is? I didn't really know Butler good because he's a senior and I was a freshman. I introduced myself, and he said, yeah, it's right over there next to Jake Webster's. Can you imagine where Webster came from and me?
Wow.
And ended up right side by side?
How about that?
He came out of Europe.
Damnedest,
Yeah, out of the Third Army.
The damnedest coincidence I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't believe it. And we had a good time. He said, come on, let's go get to BX and get a beer. They had this old watered down beer they'd give us. And so I said, fine. You know, I hadn't been around much beer or anything in so long. And so I went over there and I said, Jake, I don't feel too good. And he said, oh, a couple of beers will fix you up. So we did, and I felt worse and worse. And finally, I passed out on the bed, and a colonel came in and was inspecting the ward and found me there. And they checked me out, and I had hepatitis.
Oh, really?
I caught it on that darn ship, you know. It was everybody jammed in there and wasn't too clean. Had hepatitis. 2 of us did. That other boy died. And I got to, they fed me 5 times a day and injected me with vitamin feeds and everything, you know, and I was skinny as a rail anyway. And pulled out of that, but that was, got over it and got my wife out there, and we lived in a little farmhouse outside of the hospital, and her sister lived in San Francisco.
Where was your wife living while you were
She was living in Houston.
In Houston? Okay.
And working at a bank all the time I was overseas. And so she came out, we got out there and got this little old place, just one room. Had a little experience, had a little earthquake over there and everything, and then along came VJ Day in August of '45, and here came her sister and brother-in-law who was working at the Navy Yard there. Got us and took us downtown San Francisco, and we got to enjoy the celebration of the Jap surrender. That was a great thing. And then I left there, the hospital, and had it operated on a Navy surgeon. I thought he put a piece of plastic in there. He cut it open like that, cleaned it out, and put a piece of plastic in there. He said it's been there for 40-something years.
I'll be darned.
It it doesn't feel good, but
Yeah.
it's still in better shape than most of them my age.
Yeah.
You know, most of them are on the damn walkers, canes, and
Right.
it's just pitiful.
Yes, sir.
Old doctors, different ones that. So I try to go to the gym 3 times a week and keep house. And until this year, I did my own yard work, and I got a big yard, big backyard and everything. But I'm getting where I got to slow down a little.
A little bit, huh? How old are you?
85,
85.
be 86 next June.
So when you were in the hospital in Los Angeles, right?
Just a few days.
Then where were you when at VJ Day
That was at Modesto, Hammond General.
in California?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It was a big one up there. Lots full of A&M people. I'll tell you what.
But excuse me, were you getting well with the idea that they might send you back, or were you coming along that
I
well?
never thought one way or the other. I didn't care what they did. You know, in those days we were willing to do anything.
Right.
And
because after VE Day, the idea that there was going to be
after VE Day, well, then they started sending a lot of those troops around to go to the Pacific.
Yeah, with the idea that there was going to be a ground
big
war in
invasion,
Japan.
and it would have been terrible.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you something, Tom. You fooled with a lot of these veterans and people. I wish that more young people had watched the TV show The War that was just on. Those series, because just to see how we lived in those days back in the 30s. Everybody crowded around a little old Philco radio, you know, and that's all they had, and with no TV and no antibiotics and no. Can you imagine living without a cell phone? Isn't that awful? And a telephone that you had to crank.
Right. Right.
How can you go to the bathroom without a computer, for God's sakes? Anyway, maybe it was good, and we had no politicians in that war that I knew about. Of course, I was so remote, I didn't know about anything. But they didn't mess with you. And then when the politicians got in the Korean War, we started being losers.
Yes, sir. That's what I hear from
and we have
a lot of people.
We have not won a war since. Even Somalia, we got kicked out of there.
Right, in Vietnam. And
you can't do it with all the way they do it now, and then you got about half this country then got the guts enough to serve or do anything anyway, and it worries me, it really does. I got some bunch of kids. I got 13 grandkids, and several of them, if they had to get in a uniform, it'd scare them to death, they'd think. And then the other half, they love it. You gung ho like I was. We all wanted to go.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And couldn't wait, and would do it again. I swear to God, I couldn't stay in or go back because they gave me a disability discharge or whatever you call it. They have a board there that passes on you, and but hell, I wouldn't have cared if it sent me back, and I thought of even about volunteering in the Vietnam War. I had 3 kids and was in my 50s, you know, but I just feel that way about the country. I don't feel like, and there's certain people and politicians that, and I don't mind. I don't like politicians, and I don't mind telling you, I don't. I'm not politically correct, and if we'd have had some people like that guy Murtha and Jane Fonda and so forth around in our day, we'd probably still all be speaking Japanese.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's awful the way you're handcuffed and you got to call Washington to find out if you can bomb a certain place or not.
Yeah.
Hell, we just blow the piss out of it. You just don't ask somebody later, you know, and that's the only way you can do it.
Absolutely.
And so that is about my story. I got out in time in August after VJ Day to come back and enroll at A&M.
Right.
I got a little old house over there on Jersey Street, 3 rooms from old Abe Lauderstein. I rented and finished my schooling. And
when did you? I know your class of '43. You always be class. When did you finish?
This was the fall of '45. We enrolled and graduated in May '46.
Okay, May of '46.
And took some graduate work too.
Right.
And then I moved here to a little ranch between Houston and Katy at Barker, and stayed there a while, and then moved down to South Texas to Alice.
As a rancher.
I was at Barker, but we couldn't get it together. I didn't have the money, and I didn't have the money to get started. And so a feed company asked me if I moved down there and go to work for an old Aggie that was a school. My daddy was class of 1919.
Right.
And this Aggie had been in there with him. My father was a quarterback here, and I all knew him because there wasn't many students. And so I went to work for him in Alice for a year, and then old man Herman Heap at Buda, who was a year behind my father at A&M, he called me and asked me if I'd like to go up there and start ranching. And of course, he knew I'd looking for something. He leased me a house and a summer pasture and a winter pasture right there on Highway 81 where Heap Herpin ranches. Old man Herman Heap, he's got a building named after him here. Yeah, he got one named after him, and his wife's got another, Manny Bell Heap. He'd been giving a lot of money to A&M and was a great help to me. He really godfathered me, wife and I. And we got started ranching that way. Had a $500 bond, and I borrowed $400 from my mother, and had the $900 we went into the business, you know. Which isn't too good idea, but we wanted it bad, and we made it.
Wonderful.
I ended up pretty good size. It was about 350 mother cows, run 700 Angora goats. Had the best pecan bottom in Central Texas, and finally on 61, I sold my home place over there and moved here, and it was the best thing I ever did.
Mm-hmm. In '61, you came to College Station.
I've made a big circle, and this is the best place I've ever lived in my life. It's absolutely. We have no big bad. We don't have earthquakes. Tornado. If you have some tornado, I've seen one tornado here. I was over there at the baseball park serving. Had a fish fry. And I was serving a cold slaw and potato salad. I think with
right. I was at the baseball park too when when those tornadoes were dancing out there.
Helen Pugh was standing on my right, and then hail started hitting down, and I remember that. I said, "There's a tornado coming." And everybody dropped everything. I beat every damn woman there to cover.
I remember that A&M was playing the University of Houston.
Was it?
That's who they were playing that day in a non-conference game, or maybe a conference game back then.
Well, I jumped in an old pickup and came home to see if my wife was all right. She was outside in the rain covering up her tomato plants. But, we don't have many problems here.
That was in 1990, I think.
We don't have a lot of crime in this part of it. I don't know about Brian, but we don't have a lot here.
Right.
And I just love it here.
So you moved here in '61, but you went to work at A&M in '65?
Yeah, they came over here about just before Christmas time or sometime in '64. And a fellow named Bill Holtzapple.
Right.
And he said, this is a funny story, I'll tell you, if you got the time.
Yes, sir.
He says, this guy knocked on my door, that moved in his house too long. And he introduced himself, said, I'm Bill Holtzapfel. And he said, I'm a beef specialist at A&M, and we need one over there, another one. And said, the fellow that hauls cattle for you over at Center gave me your card, and he had my card in his hand. He says, you're a good cattleman. And so he came in. I said, well, come in and sit down. And we talked about it in there. And I said, I found out, he said, there was 2 other guys putting in, they were considered for that job. They're both PhDs. All I had was a BS degree, which stood for bullshit. I mean, you can delete that. He said, I don't like the one they're thinking about hiring. Well, the reason he didn't like him because old Bill was a bona fide German, loved to drink beer and everything. And this other guy was a big teetotaler. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want to have to work with the teetotaler. He was rather than get a beer with him. Well, he came to the right house anyway. I said, well, I think I'll put in for it. I could use the grocery money, pay off these damn cattle notes. And he said, he went back and OD picked me. You know, I'd made him in the service, but he knew I'd had a lot of experience. These other 2 guys hadn't had to make a living ranching.
Yeah.
And so he was working purely with ranchers.
Right.
I had 12,000 ranchers in that 10 years, and I put on 350 of those short courses.
Wow.
And traveled 350,000 miles. I had to keep records on all this, and visited 2,400 ranches.
Right.
Wow.
And so I know the state pretty good, but I never did know much about here. I didn't know not a lot of people here, you know.
Yeah.
And
you were involved with the Houston.
But after 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
that was 65 to 75.
Right.
Then after 10 years, OD asked me if I'd come get off the road and come in and teach the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Beef cattle production. They couldn't get them to take it because they didn't have anybody that taught it out of the textbook. And my wife was tickled to death getting me back home with 3 kids. So in 75, I started teaching kids, and I had never seen a grade book or anything. I didn't know anything about it. You know, I wasn't raised in that profession.
Yeah.
And old Howard Hesby over there taught me everything I needed to know, and I had big classes, 130 to 170 kids in beef production, and I just loved it. I tell you what, I loved it so much, and the kids in there in the School of Agriculture were like throwbacks to the 50s, which I think was the finest time, especially if you were a white person, that you ever lived. We got at peace after Korea, and there weren't a drug problem. I've never seen a drug, and I'm 85.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't even take 2 aspirin the same damn day. These kids over there were like that. I only had 1 or 2 bad apples in the 8 or 10,000 kids I had in 14 years of teaching them. I retired in 89, but I loved to go to work every morning. And I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't be advanced. I couldn't get tenure.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. Didn't care. If they didn't like me, give me a 2-week notice or something. That's all I care about. Not all that's covering my ass. But,
yeah.
And I didn't care. They let me do whatever I wanted to do. And so one day I just started, and he showed me how to do the grade book, give quizzes. So I gave them quiz A and graded them, put them in my grade book, and I headed out to Houston. I was junior steer superintendent down there. I worked there 40 years at the Houston show, and I got down there and I was paged. And I went to the damn phone, and it was her secretary. She was frantic. Mr. Litterst, it's time for the, what do you call it? Quiz A grades to go in or something, whatever they call it in college.
Uh-huh.
And I can't find your grade book anywhere. I can't post them. He said, where is it? I said, Well, this is my pickup out here in the parking lot of the Houston Livestock Show. And when she got up off the floor, she said, God, what'll I do? I thought a minute, and I never was one to be downplayed. I said, well, give all the boys, girls A's, the boys B's. And she did. 150 damn kids in that class. Just the way she turned them in, they never said nothing. But the girls just flocked to my class. And they still come see me. They come see me and bring me stuff. I loved every minute of it. Now I got in '89, I was getting to, I was 67 then. 67 years old. And I wasn't too GI with these professors, you know. They were all, they spoke a different language from me, but they were nice to me, I think.
Yeah.
And I won 2 of these distinguished faculty achievement awards. I won one in extension and one in teaching.
Yeah.
And I was proud of that because not having much background in there, and I wasn't even in the extension service. That caused a hell of a big hullabaloo getting one for them and not being in it. But
So you manage the beef cattle center too, right? Is that
that,
right?
and I taught 3 courses.
Right.
I taught the seniors a little course on how to do things like vaccinate, dehorn, castrate, and all that before they graduated, and then I taught the boy ag teachers before they went out to practice teach, fitting and showing and diseases and stuff.
Yeah, I found this article where they dedicated the short course to you back about 4 years ago.
When was that?
Well, the article was in 2003. The 2003 Beef Cattle Short Course at A&M was dedicated to Frank C. Litterst Jr.
I'll be damned.
On August the
I don't
4th.
think I ever saw that.
It's amazing if you type people's name into Google, what
You'd be
comes
surprised
up.
what you get up when you Google yourself.
I Googled you this morning.
Is that right?
Yeah,
I
and there's all kinds of
I
stuff.
thought
there.
I felt something.
Yeah, I did. You got
Well,
Googled this morning, and I this is the one thing that I printed off. But there was a lot. There's a lot on there. You travel with the traveling Ackies? Did you do that?
Come here. Let me show you all something.
Okay, watch out just a second.
He's got it with him.
Oh, he's got it with him. Oh, he's got it.
He's got it,
He's going to help me up here.
Have I traveled with
He's
I saw something about that you traveled with the
Look at
traveling Ackies. Oh my goodness, look at there. Oh,
I started out
oh,
about December after my wife died in January, and the best medicine I ever took was going on a trip to Italy
Yeah.
with them. I went to Italy, and then I came back, went to New England, where I got a couple of these things. And then I went to, the next one I went to Africa, Tanzania and Kenya. That was a great thing.
Yeah.
Can't imagine how good that was. And then Panama Canal trip was this one, before the girl got killed. And I flew all the way back here to Los Angeles and stopped. That ship stopped the same damn dock, the same wharf, or the same place for my ship overseas. So
Oh, really?
Oh my goodness.
I
Wow.
lived in a world of things like that.
Wow.
Then I took a New England trip with him, Boston, and when the leaves turned. I'd
Yeah.
never been up there. Then I took a Mississippi River trip, some of that. And then I took one to South America, to Peru. I went to Machu Picchu and went on the Amazon River for about 9 days, and then went up to Machu Picchu with my roommate was Dick Winters from Brady. He's a veterinarian, classmate of mine. Old G. Riley White, that's the gym named after, was his uncle. He was on the board of regents when we was in school.
Yeah.
Old Dick got kicked out of school every year. And he got him back on. Anyway, this last trip I had 7 countries that went in the Mediterranean.
Wow.
So
Let's see what kind of
it's the way to go. It is something.
what kind of pictures you got.
Well, here's something I was proud of. You talk about Google.
Mhm.
This was a class. This was November 17th, 1916.
Yeah.
That was a A&M football program.
Oh, wow.
And my son-in-law, he played football here, and he found this for me.
What's your son-in-law's name?
Carl Goff.
Okay.
He was an offensive lineman when they beat Alabama in the Cotton Bowl.
Oh, about 40 years ago.
Yes, sir.
And it was 40 years ago this year.
And here's some pictures of him, and then here's the lineup, and he showed me. That was my daddy. That's it. Litterst.
Yeah.
He's a quarterback.
I'll be darned.
Weighed about 135 pounds.
And this was
1916.
16.
He loved this place with a passion. And then I don't have many pictures that I can find.
Well, we don't need many, but I
They
want
had
to see
these
what you got.
They had these at the Corps Center. That's where I was there.
Yeah.
The fluid campaign. Let's see what I found. These, and they're mostly just kind of comical.
Why don't you sit down there?
I had
Count
one.
that
I
stuff.
had a picture
Because
of
Kyle's the one that's going to be
a
using
little
it.
old Jap cannon that we had gotten, but I don't know where it is. My camera wouldn't do. This is Officer's Candidate School. That's me, and that's Cecil Carlisle from Alice, Texas. We slept side by side, and we were acting silly the day we got commissioned. You know,
This is
he
you
suspected
hitting
me.
that's you hitting the brace there?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And,
I like that.
and here's a whole bunch of us on that Yankee. He was there, and these are all Aggies.
That is
We were giving him the going over. We got commissioned that day, and we were feeling pretty good. This is New Guinea. I got a grass skirt there off of one of the native women and traded for cigarettes.
That's a great. These are some great pictures.
And there's two more again, same thing. And we were in a Lever Brothers coconut grove where they made soap. And I saved this boy's life from drowning too. Steinberg. He couldn't swim. He stepped in a hole, and I saved about 3 people. But I said I never even got a good conduct. If you've ever seen Nagle Street, that's Jack Nagle.
Mm-hmm.
He was squadron lead bombardier in England, and he got killed on Bay the 8th, 44. Ryan, he was a yell leader here. That's him again in front of Buckingham Palace.
Are you in this one?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, I was in the other field over there. That's a pensive mood in New Guinea. I was wishing I was home. Here's one getting ready to get on that ship. Now this would have been interesting, but we didn't look like a bunch of rogues. That's Ensign George Gay,
Oh,
the only survivor of Torpedo Squadron 8.
from the
Battle Midway.
Battle Midway. He's the one that ended up floating in the water.
He was in my battery, and he left school. Went.
That's
And
a great photograph.
So this raunchy, skinny little thing here was the captain of this outfit, this hard hauler, and we all looked bond-rigged and silly. But he came back, and I was his host, and I took him around about 3 days.
I'll retire.
He spoke down the cow field, lumber and everything, told about how his deal was, and the second in command of the Tokyo raid came too, and he spoke. And all these people are dead with me, and this one. That's the one that told about me having a date. He's still living, can't hardly breathe, but he's out in Arizona.
You can tell that story.
Yeah.
But old Gay was more fun, and
Yeah.
we didn't have money, and he said, "Get me a board." You know, we used to whip each other's butts pretty good, and he had an ass tear right out there on the street, corner Hart Hall, which of course was illegal. And here comes the commandant, and that commandant walked right by us, about 20 feet away, and he never turned his head. You know, he wouldn't look at us. He didn't want to. He didn't want to mess. Hell, he was on the front cover of
It's like we're not gonna. That's George
Life
Gay.
magazine and everything.
We're not gonna mess with them. Just walk on past.
He'd been shot here in this arm, and his co-pilot back, his gunner, was killed. But he was hell on wheels, and he bought 8/5 of rum and took us all out to Franklin's nightclub, which was right out here across from the industrial park. and it was a nice place, and we'd had the biggest party, and they took a whole bunch of pictures like this
Yeah.
and this, and put them on the walls there. They stayed out there till that place closed. They sure did. And I was a terrible people that should never mess with me. This was my first roommate. This is my last roommate.
Uh-huh.
This is my next to last one. And one of them in showing. I had 4 roommates. They all flunked out. Alf, I tell you something. I managed to hang in there. These were old pictures, animal science after the war.
Uh-huh.
They were over there where the golf course is now.
Yeah.
On the campus, you know.
Yeah.
That was all animal science stuff. Yeah, that's me there.
That's right here.
Yeah.
I want to get this one over here because these are some good
Yeah,
pictures.
there they are.
So, yeah, we're going to borrow these pictures and give them back to you on
Fine,
Thursday.
I don't care.
Um,
And are you sure you want me?
yes. Oh, are we sure? My goodness
absolutely.
gracious.
I mean, I haven't done one damn thing.
Well,
heroic,
but-
pull that old boy
Well,
out
I'll
of
tell
the
you what,
water with
but I've never laughed so much in a visit.
chew in the back.
Yeah, that's right. Now you got it. I don't want you unless you tell the story to Kyle about giving all the girls A's and the boys B. Can
Yeah,
you,
A's and B's, that's
can you
got-
tell that story?
That's got to make the thing.
I'll be glad to.
Because somewhere that needs to be in the student manual. So asterisk.
You know, I just
by the
love
way,
to get on
A's
that
and
and rub it in a little bit. Because so many of these professors are so stuffy and so blue nose, so and tight as a Dick's headband, and they
That's
got
funny.
the nose stuck up in there like it smells something bad all the time. And I just was never that way. What you saw is
That's
what
because
you
they're
got.
tenured.
Well, what do you think? You think
You
you
have
can
a-
make a show out of it?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, sir.
The problem with these is trying to get it all in 27 and a half minutes.
Exactly.
All right, now what do I wear?
Whatever you.
You can wear what you have
I mean,
on.
I don't have an official outfit like Dr. Cooper. I don't think I've ever seen him without that. on him.
Without that.
All that. So, you know, and I belong to the Legion and I belong to the VFW.
Uh-huh.
But all those kids over wearing that VFW wear all that mess. I got a cap. Theirs was just loaded with all kind of stuff up here, you know, and kind of gave me a complex. I didn't even have a good conduct ribbon. But I did the best I could. And I would tell you what, I wouldn't trade my life. Old Bum Bright was living the same dorm with me, and he was
Really?
captain of D battery, I was captain of A, and we competed against each other all the time. I would trade my life for his $1 million.
Now your dad was class of 1919,
Yes, sir.
Wow.
and
We're 4 generation Aggies.
well, now was he in World War One?
Yes, sir. He sure was.
Well, now did he die at a young
His
age?
brother, oh, he was 80 when he died.
Oh, was he? Okay.
He died
okay.
in 19 of prostate cancer results. He died in 1970 or 72.
Okay. All right.
And then my youngest son was class of 73, which was 30 years behind me.
Uh-huh.
And our oldest boy was 68, my son-in-law 69. I call him my son too.
Uh-huh.
And then I've had 2 grandkids up there. Went to A&M, and some of them went other places.
Yeah.
None of them went to Texas, thank God. They gave my oldest boy a scholarship at Texas for football. Boy, A&M did.
Really?
Yeah. Kyle, what was your last name, son?
Netterville?
Huh?
Netterville.
Netterville.
Yes, sir.
I'm Turbiville and he's Netterville.
Netterville and
That's right.
Turbiville. This is a B-52 pilot.
Now these are your grandkids?
This is a F-16 pilot, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And the other one's picture is just starting. He's not.
Now are they in the service now?
Yes, sir.
Where are they?
This one's in Bossier City, Louisiana, at that base.
Uh-huh.
This one's at the air base in Fort Worth.
Uh-huh.
And the other one's at the base Del Rio, just starting.
So are any of them
And
gonna be
their
deployed?
their daddy was, this is my daughter,
Uh-huh.
and her husband, Carl Goff,
Oh.
was in charge of when he was a bird colonel. And
That
he
name sounds
flew-
familiar,
he
I don't know
flew
why.
everything. And when he was in charge of all of the
Oh, she's a pilot?
flight training in well, they took my daughter. She went down to Air Base before San Antonio.
Oh, I see.
And they
So
dressed
she-
her up like
Oh, they
that
dressed her up.
and let the taxi around the runway there.
Oh, they didn't.
That's the F-16 boy.
And he still flies the F-16?
Oh hell yeah!
Oh, man, I
every
bet.
damn night,
Oh my goodness.
night and day.
Well, you know, we saw those things have been flying over the stadium at football games.
Yeah.
Had 4 of them last Saturday.
That was such a thrill.
Yeah.
See those Aggies fly over. He's done that a couple times.
Has he?
And the B-52 boy, he flew his over the racetrack in Dallas Fort Worth where they have those damn NASCAR races.
Yeah, the Texas Motor Speedway.
This is the 3 of them, my boy, and this is Carl Goff right there.
I see.
He flies a jet now. He was in the service, became a bird colonel, flying everything, so was his daddy. And then he got out, flew for American Airlines, they retired him, then he got out of that and flies for NetJet now, a private jet. That's my oldest boy, and that's my youngest son. And this one wasn't that thing. He was the first all-state football player, consolidated it,
I've been
Really?
1968.
Wow.
I'm proud of him, son.
I was going to ask
You
you.
know, I never made much money, but I'm proud of what I've got.
I was going to ask you for one more picture, if you had. Do you have like a formal mugshot of your service mugshot or your
Well,
A&M senior?
That picture somewhere that
Well, no, I don't want you to
that
do a lot of searching for.
Bill had
Right.
put one in the paper. Now,
What?
where would that have been?
Well, he should have given it back to you.
Where did